Hello, Lake Deaton family. It is so good to be with you. I think I'm going to film all of my videos for this study here on my front porch. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. So today, the psalm that you read, Psalms 4, 5, and 6, and I am specifically going to talk about Psalm number 6. So I want to say two things about the Psalms, but the first thing I want to say is a lot of the things that I'm saying don't just come right out of my head. I'm going to be reading and studying along with the Psalms these two commentaries, this one and this really large one. So these are the two commentaries that I'm using. So a lot of the things that I'm saying are coming out of those two commentaries. So the first thing about Psalm 6, and you might want to have it opened up or just go back and read it after we talk about it, is the first thing is it was a prayer that was probably originally written for people who were sick, or to be prayed when people who were physically sick. And a long time ago, people thought that God made them sick. And we know that that's not true today. We know that God doesn't make people sick. Germs make people sick. But over time, as people started to know that wasn't true, it changed from a prayer that was prayed when people were sick to one of the penitential psalms, a penitent psalm. And there are 7 of these that are in that category. But what's interesting about this is if you go back and read it, is in the psalm, there's not actually anywhere in there where the psalmist asks for forgiveness of sin or even admits that there is a sin that happened. And in a penitential psalm, you'd think that one of those two things would happen, or both of them. But the reason that it probably ended up being a penitential psalm is because of the thing that was mentioned in the very first verse. Right away at the very beginning of the psalm, it says, "O Lord, don't rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your rage." So, it's the second day of the study. I thought we'd kick it right off and talk about God being angry. That's just like so much fun. So let's just talk about it. God and anger. Something that makes us all uncomfortable and makes us squirm around because we don't like to talk about God being angry. But you can't talk about love without talking about anger or other emotions. And myself as a parent, and I know we're not all parents, but myself as a parent, I often got angry, and still sometimes get angry at my grown children, but I often got angry at my children, and that didn't mean that I didn't love them. Now, as a human being, and not God, I sometimes get angry for silly reasons. Sometimes I got angry for good reasons, but sometimes I get angry for silly reasons. But, God is not silly, and God never gets angry for silly reasons. When God gets angry at things like when God's children don't love each other, or when God's children hurt or kill each other, or when God's children destroy the earth that God has put them in control of, or when God's children don't feed the poor when there's enough and throw food away instead. So God does get angry when we don't do the right things and we hurt God's other children or God's creation. God doesn't get angry because God's ego gets bruised, or because God doesn't get enough sleep, or God gets cut off in traffic. God doesn't get angry because of those silly reasons. God only gets angry for righteous reasons. And God doesn't stay angry. God doesn't hold a grudge. God doesn't like do what some people do, where God will like dangle that thing that you did over top of you forever. And so God's anger doesn't last. And so I think we can see right away when we look at the psalm why it was considered one of the penitential psalms. If God is angry, the psalmist, then it must mean that the psalmist sinned. And the good news in there, though, is that God hears. And it's right there near the end. It says, "The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord will answer my prayer." And that's the wonderful thing about this lament, is that it teaches us that that God always, in all circumstances, no matter what, hears us, answers us, loves us, and forgives us. And so that's the good news in this, is that we are loved by God, and God forgives us and hears us even when we're at our lowest spot. And so that's the good thing about this psalm. So that's all I have to say on day 2. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.